Yeah, this will be quick, Mark. Oh, we'll wait a minute or two and hope that. Yeah, I know. I like your throwdown to the closing time song. Do you know what it's about? That song? It's about the lead singer's giving his wife giving birth, and like you can't stay here, but you got to go home. Oh yeah. Yeah. There's like a YouTube video where he explains it to all his other fellow Harvard grads at one of their reunions. Yeah. I went to, that little liberal arts school up the street. I went to the tech on the bank of the Upchuck River. The technical school. Well, okay. All right, 2, 4, 6, 7. All right, we are approaching double digits on the attendance. We'll be I'm counting the remote. 2, 4, 6, 7, 8, 9, and then there's like 3 people. Austin is here. Austin, right? Wait a minute or two. This will be quick. Also, because I was the only one who did slides. No, Chris, you don't have to be awake to be counted. Francesca, our AD. All right, why don't we just get started? The quicker we start, the quicker we can wrap up.
Cheers to that.
Pardon me?
I said cheers to that.
Yeah, you got to go take a nap before.
Yeah.
Okay. Welcome to HTTPAPI. If you're looking for a different group, stay here anyway. We need to meet the quota. The first few slides are boilerplate. You should have seen them all before. The note well. If you have privacy or intellectual property about these kinds of things, you need to disclose it one way or another, or please leave the room. The note really well, treat each other with respect, courtesy. If you have to, commenting negatively on something, make sure it's clear that you are talking about the technology or the technology of the proposal, not the person presenting it. If you want slings and arrows of outrageous fortune, send them to me. I can take it. I have a thick skin. Again, should have all seen this before. Meeting tips, those remote, this probably can't hear me anyhow. If you're in person, we will use the queue, but it's a small room and there's not a lot of people. So if you forget to press the hands-on button, just walk to the mic. We'll figure it out. Resources, agenda, meeting prep, issues. At this point, I think the only question people should have is, where do I put my suitcase while I'm getting ready to leave? That's a joke. Okay, administrivia, we need a note taker. I will take some notes here. If anyone else, well, I can't do it on the online notepad because we'll lose focus and I'll lose the slides. Anyone interested in taking notes?
I can probably do it.
All right, thanks, Daryl. Introductions, Rich Saul's co-chair. Daryl is our remote co-chair, Daryl Miller. In the front corner up here in the black t-shirt, as usual, is Mark Nottingham, our group secretary. Okay, agenda. As I said, I think we'll probably wrap up in close to 30 minutes. Go over the status of the documents that have left working group last call and where they are in the process. talk about the current documents. Talk about that, the status of the current documents. Some of them, I prepared the slides on all of them. Pardon me, or an incorporated slide we got from one of the speakers who's not going to be able to speak. Any other business? One change to this agenda is after we do this administrative slide, Daryl is going to show a chart that shows where our various repos are and in what state. Anyone suggestions for change, requests for change, another use of RFC? Okay. Daryl, why don't you request to share? I will stop. Or you start sharing.
I will do that. As has become tradition, here we have updated the GitHub Pages website for the GitHub repo that hosts the documents and the little graphs of where we are in the journey from working group adoption all the way to RFC are shown here with the orange bubbles. Link template header has a new draft out. It is in IESG review. We have a bunch of other specs that are all in various different iterations of draft, waiting to go to working group last call. There's been a fair amount of new drafts since our last IETF, and we do have the media type for YAML, which is now RFC 9512. That's it. For folks who are interested in what the open issues are across the repos for this working group, there's a link that I just put into the chat for all of the issues that are here, ones that are in discussion, ones that are waiting for document updates. You can go take a look at those. Rich has highlighted in his slides some of the key ones that we will possibly want to talk about today. I shall hand it back to you.
Okay. Mark, Daryl is also taking notes.
If I can just figure out how to get the note-taking tool in the middle of the window. But I will do that.
Okay. All right, so the status of documents that have left working group last call and gone on to the ISG and so on. YAML media type, as YAML media type, as Daryl said, has been published as an RFC. I was jet lagged when I wrote the slides. The link template is in IETF last call, has not yet been approved and is not in the RFC production queue yet. So I got the acronyms backwards. Rate limit headers, the draft has expired, but I guess you're working on it too, right, Daryl? Yeah.
Yes, that's for Roberto and I to sort out. There, I'm behind on that.
So that still is making progress, even though it has, because of the way the data tracker works, you don't see it in the list of documents if it's expired. We'll get a refresh soon. API catalog. This nice picture comes from, drawing a blank on the name. It shows, the idea is you have a server resource that anyone can use and find pointers to and references to the various APIs that are implemented on that server. Nice picture. The current state of things. The goal is, as I said, key changes based on feedback from the IETF, previous IETF, and the mailing list. Details here. Have anyone who in the room has read or been involved or is using or considering using the API catalog? Okay. Nobody, but that's fine. This is a very small subset of the API community. It's a short document. Encourage people to take a look at it. You'll hear that phrase a lot. Link auth, not auth link, or yeah, authentication links. It was just refreshed. So there's a new version of the document out, and sometime shortly after this meeting ends, we'll ask the security directorate for a review. Okay, right? You gonna do that, Daryl? You want me to?
Yeah, yes, I will do that.
Cool. Okay, and hopefully I won't get it assigned to me. I got to do TLS 1.3. I'll tell you a joke later. Link hints. So there is one issue. Mark Nottingham in the room is the author. I just quoted the issue. Anything else worth saying about that?
Yeah.
Mike?
IETF. It's Friday.
You can't claim jet lag as an excuse.
Suckers. Mark Nottingham. Yeah, this is obviously a really big issue, and it's going to need a substantial rework to figure out if this is worthwhile. So I don't know that we can productively discuss it now. I think what I need to do is go away, come up with a proposal, and see what it looks like, and see how that feels, and then we can decide about that, if it makes sense. And I guess, you know, the underlying question is, you know, this is supposed to be, you know, and the linking framework in general is not specific to any serialization. It's an abstraction above serializations. And so this would be constraining the data model to suit a particular serialization. Now that data model happens to be easily serializable elsewhere, like XML and JSON, but we should look at that and see what it looks like.
Okay. The idea of thinking about it and writing down some issues before discussing it, whether or not that's novel in the IETF community, it is something to be commended.
We want to blaze trails here. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I think maybe the latent issue there is that the structured fields data model is, shall we say, highly specialized based on the history of how HTTP headers have been developed. And so it's a little bit ugly, but we're trying to make it a little prettier. So we'll see.
I did read the latest update, Mark, and your comment around the data model. The interesting one, you're concerned about the fact that JSON supports the ability to have deeply nested stuff, but like it almost feels the nature of being able to have links that have formats that can then have links. It just feels like you're not going to be able to get away from the potential of deeply nested stuff.
I think it depends on, you know, what the use cases for link hints are. If we want to turn an entire description of an API into a hint, yeah, that's not going to be suitable. But if we're really focusing this thing on what are the HTTP level interactions that are possible with this, you know, what methods does it support? You know, what authentication schemes does it support? That sort of thing. I think we can constrain ourselves pretty effectively.
You mentioned in your comment about your concern of it not working so well with serializing to HTML attributes. Do you see that as a significant use case for adding into HTML?
Despite the working group's best efforts, link relations still are used in HTML. I mean, to be fair, they have their own system for this, but I would like it to be serializable so that, you know, we're trying to converge those two systems rather than create wedges between them. So we need to look at that and make sure that it's sensible in the HTML world.
Have you looked at, or would you consider putting limits on, you can be in JSON, but it better not be more than 2 levels deep, that kind of deal? Or is that too clunky?
Well, I mean, you would immediately face the question of how you would serialize that in an HTTP header,
Fair enough.
which, is a well-known little minefield.
Okay. Any other questions on the topic? Document? Thank you, Mark.
Thank you.
REST API media types. This was a split off from a general or 2 registrations document. Started out with a flurry of open issues when the thing was created in 2022. Now that's more than a year ago. We brought on an additional author. There hasn't been a lot of work. It sort of feels like we should do it since we split the thing off to get one of them out. So we'll ask on the list, or first we'll speak to the authors and see if they're still willing to pursue, and then we'll ask on the list. I don't think any of the issues were particularly intractable. Do you, Darryl?
Yeah, no, and the most recent revision, I believe, Roberto split OpenAPI out because I think a lot of the challenges were around JSON schema and dealing with fragments in JSON schema. And the only blocking issue around the OpenAPI specification was security considerations. There is now a security considerations doc that has been written in the OpenAPI repo. So we have something to reference there. The only other issue that is a question is, at the moment, the media type registration suggests creating OpenAPI, application/OpenAPI plus JSON and application/OpenAPI plus YAML, but it doesn't suggest registering application/OpenAPI. And that, especially because of all the conversations going on about multiple suffixes and the processing of multiple suffixes, I'm sort of feeling like we should register application/just OpenAPI, which will assume that which can be processed by a YAML processor, because JSON is a subset of YAML. And so if you receive application/OpenAPI, you can just throw it into a YAML processor and it'll work regardless of what you get. So that's a follow-up that I want to do with Roberto.
Okay. Yeah, I'll point out, Roberto told us 2 years ago that he was getting a new job with different responsibilities. So that's why he's not been participating much, although he did a really nice job helping to finish off some of his documents. Okay, so we'll check with the authors and ask on the list, look for volunteers. Deprecation, not depreciation. We're probably going to be looking for a volunteer to help finish this one. This is much less work, has many fewer issues. Should just be, since we've done the big one, which is we're not going to tackle a whole life cycle of APIs, we're just going to be able to indicate to a client, this API is going to go away in a time frame. So it should be pretty easy to help finish this off. If someone is looking to, make their mark on and helping author an RFC, contact HTTPAPI-chairs. But again, we'll check with the authors, check on the list. Idempotency, whatever that word is. This was in working group last call. Mark identified a handful of issues that really were blockers before proceeding. It needs a revision. Darryl's been working with the authors. We will redo the working group last call. Second time's the charm. Anything you want to say about it, Darryl?
Just that I was pleasantly surprised that there were a number of other people who've gone in recently and commented on some of the issues that are there, especially with people who have experience of implementing, and some of the questions that were raised have had feedback. So there's some good, helpful conversations going on in that set of issues now.
Yeah, just to point out, we have a gateway weekly message summary between the GitHub issues that have had comments and the mailing list. But given the community and its orientation, when we started, half the people were not IETFers. A lot of the discussion on these things is on GitHub. So you may want to look there, and feel free to comment there. If you go to our data tracker page, there's a resource that points to the project, and then there's all the individual repos, one for each document. So as a reminder, just consider looking on GitHub, or post something to the mailing list also is legit. Byte range. Austin is online, remote from Arizona, I think, in the US. He just published a new edition, version of the document. Anything you want to say about it, Austin?
Yeah, I mean, briefly. Yeah, sorry, I was traveling for the past month, so there might be emails and things from people that I still have to reply to. But the new version, and just to refresh, byte range lets you like overwrite specific regions of a target file, which is sort of the opposite of getting partial content. This revision has just a new syntax for the content offset header. Previously, it was sort of overloading the content range header, which was suspicious at best. So it uses the structured fields, which I'd like someone to review, and maybe bike shed some of the parameter names. And I'm just noting I'm interested in keeping the scope somewhat restricted to publishing a media type, because the media type does useful things. And then if there's other use cases that grow on that, maybe those should be looked at separately. And I'm aware of two. First is for sort of operational transform like use cases, like we talked about with Braid last session, where they would like to do search and replace or splicing, which is not overwriting, but it would probably be a similar file format for what they're looking to do. And then also resumable uploads is interested in a feature almost exactly like this, but would prefer to not have to parse a new media type. It would, for efficiency purposes or whatever, maybe baking that into the protocol or just minting a header that must be read. And that would also have to be separately looked at to make sure that the server doesn't misaccept the request when it would not be understood, or if you know what I mean. So yeah, that's pretty much all there is to that. Yeah.
Okay, and that last part was talking about, that addresses the maybe split some things into the HTTP protocol. Is that what you meant?
Yeah, I mean, let me rephrase that. Yeah, if one of the goals, or like especially for resumable uploads, one of the ideals would be that we don't have to parse anything from the request body. The request body just is the content that's going to be appended to the document or overwriting the document. And then any of the other metadata that specifies where in the document that goes, that would be part of an HTTP header or something that's actually already in the HTTP syntax. That would definitely be probably more of an HTTP biz or working group question rather than APIs. And that would require some thinking about making sure that the server rejects requests if it doesn't support that functionality, which could be either like a new HTTP method or maybe just a special case reserved name for a media type parameter using the patch method. There's a bunch of different ways which would have to be examined, but that's sort of outside the scope of this document.
Yes, okay. All right, thank you. Thanks for staying up. Any other business? Does anyone have any ideas, concerns, problems, proposed new documents that they would like to bring to this group? We have managed to work through a large portion of our backlog. We're now sort of at a lull. The chairs will nudge people to make sure that things don't fall on the floor, or stagnate, I guess is a better word for it. Anything you want to say, Francesca? Nope, she's good. All right. Thank you all very much. I'll give you an hour back, as they say. Go stand in line on the snack line. If you're looking for a good sugary snack, the gelato place that was mentioned, Messina, it's very good. Well, it was a chain, so I was disappointed. But anyhow, yeah, Messina, you can find it in Messina gelato. Yeah, it's not authentic, I know. But anyhow, it's you can walk there, eat your gelato, and come back within half an hour, and you can ask me how I know. With all that, thank you for attending, and see you on the list or at the next sessions. Take care.
Thank you.
Go take a nap, Daryl. And I should stop sharing.